Alina Vasquez walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers. Her black shoes clicked on the smooth crystal floor. The sound echoed in the huge room. She carried a simple briefcase in her right hand. That could change everything for humanity. The chamber was enormous. It could hold 10,000 beings from different worlds. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Giant pillars made of living metal twisted up toward the sky. Each pillar glowed with a soft blue light. The walls showed moving pictures of distant stars and planets. Alina was small compared to most beings in the room. Humans were one of the newer species in the galaxy. They had only been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years. Many older species still looked down on them. She took her seat at the human section. The chair was too big for her. It had been made for the Gorvani, who were twice as tall as humans. Alina sat straight and put her briefcase on the table. She looked around the room. The Zephyrians sat in the center section. They were the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their bodies were made of living crystal that changed colors with their emotions. Right now, most of them glowed a cold blue. It meant they were angry or upset. High Consul Kethfer stood up. He was the leader of the Zephyrians. His crystal body was deep purple with streaks of silver. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass mixed with wind chimes. "Today we discuss the human problem," Kethfer said. His words filled the chamber. These creatures spread across the galaxy like a disease. They take resources that belong to established species. They build colonies on worlds we have marked for development. Alina felt her heart beat faster. This was not how the meeting was supposed to start. They were here to discuss trade routes, not to be called a disease. The humans claim they want peace, Kethfer continued, but they breed like insects. They consume everything they touch. They turn beautiful worlds into ugly industrial centers. Other species in the chamber began to murmur. Some agreed with the Zephyrian leader. Others seemed uncomfortable. The Altarians, who looked like tall blue plants, swayed nervously. The mechanical Nexus beings clicked and whirred as they talked among themselves. Alina stood up. "High Consul Kethfer, we came here today to discuss trade agreements. Humanity has followed all galactic laws. We have never taken a world that belonged to another species." Kethfer's crystal body flashed bright red. "You speak lies, little human. Your kind takes worlds and claims they were empty. But we know better. We have watched you for years. You are parasites." The word hit Alina like a physical blow. Parasites. She had heard worse things said about humans before, but never in the official council chambers. Never in front of all the major species of the galaxy. "Consul, that is not true," Alina said. Her voice stayed calm, even though anger burned inside her. "Human colonies are built only on worlds with no intelligent life. We follow the galactic settlement protocols exactly. Protocols written by primitive minds," Kethfer laughed. The sound was like ice cracking. "Your species has existed in space for less than 200 years. We Zephyrians have traveled the stars for 50,000 years. We know which worlds have value." Alina looked around the chamber. Most beings were watching silently. Some seemed to enjoy the show. Others looked away, embarrassed by the display. "High Consul," Alina said, "if you have specific complaints about human settlements, we can discuss them through proper channels, but calling us parasites and diseases is not productive." Kethfer moved closer to the human section. His crystal body grew brighter and sharper. Temperature around him dropped. Frost began to form on the nearby walls. "Productive?" he said. "You want to know what would be productive? Your species learning its proper place? You are new. You are weak. You are primitives playing with technology you do not understand." Alina felt something cold settle in her stomach. This was more than just diplomatic posturing. The Zephyrian leader was trying to humiliate humanity in front of the entire galaxy. "We have followed all laws," Alina repeated. "We have committed no crimes? No crimes?" Kethfer's laugh became louder. "Your very existence is a crime against galactic order. Your species should have been contained when we first discovered you. Instead, we showed mercy. We allowed you to join our council. We gave you rights you have not earned. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the background hum of the environmental systems seemed to stop. Every being in the room was watching now. Alina stood perfectly still. She knew that her next words would be recorded and sent across the galaxy. Billions of humans would see this moment. So would billions of other beings. "High Consul Kethver," she said slowly, "humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence with all species. We want to trade, to learn, to contribute to galactic civilization. Contribute." Kethver moved even closer. His crystal body was now so bright it hurt to look at. What can primitives contribute? You have no great art, no deep philosophy, no advanced science. You are children playing with toys. Alina felt her hands shake slightly. She pressed them flat against the table to keep them steady. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "you would prefer if humanity simply left the galaxy?" "Yes," Kethver said immediately. "That would solve many problems. Pack your little ships and go back to your single world. Stay there until you grow up. Come back in 10,000 years if your species still exists." Alina nodded slowly. "If we refuse?" Kethver's crystal body pulsed with deep red light. "Then perhaps the galaxy needs to teach you a lesson about respect." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Alina looked around the chamber one more time. No other species spoke. Up for humanity. They all sat in silence, watching the confrontation. Alina picked up her briefcase. She looked directly at Kethver. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "High Consul, I came here today hoping for peace. I brought trade agreements that would benefit all species. Instead, you have chosen to threaten my people." She paused and took a deep breath. "If that is truly what you want, if you truly believe humanity should be taught a lesson, then so be it. But understand this clearly. When humans fight, we do not fight like other species. We do not simply defeat our enemies and then make peace." Alina's voice grew colder. "When humanity is threatened with extinction, when we are forced to fight for our very survival, we become something different, something the galaxy has never seen before." She looked around the chamber one final time. "You want war, High Consul? Then you shall have war. But remember these words when the fighting begins. No mercy, no memory, only erasure." Alina turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Behind her, Kethver began to laugh again. But the sound seemed less confident than before. As the doors closed behind her, Alina heard the Zephyrian leader's voice one last time. "Primitives making threats they cannot keep. The galaxy will see how weak humans truly are." Alina did not look back. She had work to do. Dr. Sarah Chen was studying alien plant samples when the emergency alert came through her laboratory speakers. The high-pitched sound made her drop her test tube. Green liquid splashed across her white lab coat. "All personnel report to the main communications center immediately," the voice said. "This is not a drill. All personnel report now." Sarah had been working on Europa Research Station for 3 years. She had never heard that tone before. Something was very wrong. She ran through the narrow corridors of the space station. Other scientists and workers were doing the same thing. Their faces showed confusion and fear. Nobody talked. They just ran. The communications center was packed with people. The main screen showed a news reporter from Earth. Behind the reporter, Sarah could see the lights of Geneva at night. The woman's face was serious. "The colony ship New Horizon has been destroyed," the reporter said. "All 50,000 passengers are confirmed dead. The ship was attacked without warning by Zephyrian military vessels." Sarah felt the air leave her lungs. 50,000 people gone. Among the passengers were 12,000 children traveling to New Earth colony with their families, the reporter continued. The attack happened in neutral space, far from any military zones. The room was completely silent now. Sarah looked around at her colleagues. Dr. Martinez was crying quietly. Professor Kim had his hands pressed against his mouth. Even the tough security guards looked shocked. The screen changed to show Ambassador Alina Vasquez standing in front of the United Earth Government building. Her face was hard as stone. "Humanity has been patient," Alina said. "We have followed galactic law. We have tried to live in peace with all species. But today, the Zephyrians have shown us that they see our children as acceptable targets. Lena paused and looked directly into the camera. Therefore, the United Earth government has declared a state of total war against the Zephyrian Empire and all its allies. As of this moment, all human civilians in contested space will be evacuated. All human colonies will switch to military production. All human ships will be converted for war use. Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. Total war. She had read about the old wars on Earth, but humanity had been peaceful for over a century. Alina continued speaking. Every human citizen who is able will contribute to this war effort. We did not choose this fight, but we will finish it. The Zephyrians have forgotten something important about humanity. The ambassador's eyes seemed to look right through the camera. We are the species that conquered an entire planet. We are the children of hunters and survivors. We are threatened. We do not simply fight back. We adapt. We learn. We become whatever we need to become to survive. The transmission ended. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then Station Commander Torres spoke up. All right, people. You heard the ambassador. We have new orders coming in now. Sarah watched as the commander read from his tablet. His expression grew more serious. With each line, Europa Research Station is now a military facility, Torres said. All civilian research is suspended immediately, Dr. Chen. Your biology lab will be converted for biological weapons research, Dr. Martinez. Chemistry equipment will be used for explosive development. Sarah wanted to object. She was a scientist, not a weapons maker. But then she thought about those 12,000 children on the New Horizon. They had been going to start new lives on a distant world. Now they were dead because someone thought humans did not deserve to live in peace. Commander Sarah said, "What exactly do you need me to do?" Torres looked at his tablet again. The military wants information about Zephyrian biology. Everything we know about their crystal bodies. How they work, how they might be vulnerable, how we might be able to disrupt their life processes. Sarah nodded slowly. She knew more about Zephyrian biology than almost any human alive. She had studied their crystal structure for years, trying to understand how they lived and grew. "I can do that," she said. Across the room, Dr. Martinez was already making notes about explosive chemistry. Professor Kim was talking quietly with the computer. Specialists about hacking alien networks. Sarah realized that everything was changing very quickly. These people had been peaceful scientists just an hour ago. Now they were becoming something else, something focused and dangerous. Over the next few days, Sarah watched the transformation continue. Military ships arrived at the station. Soldiers in black uniforms took over the docking bays. The scientific equipment was moved out and replaced with weapons manufacturing tools. Sarah worked 18 hours a day in her new laboratory. The military had given her access to classified information about Zephyrian anatomy. She learned things that amazed and horrified her. Zephyrians were not really alive in the way humans understood life. They were more like living computers made of crystal. Their thoughts moved through their bodies as light patterns. Their memories were stored in crystal matrices that could be damaged or corrupted. Sarah began to understand how they might be vulnerable. She also received reports from other human stations and colonies. The same transformation was happening everywhere. Peaceful farmers were learning to make explosives. Computer programmers were writing virus codes designed to attack alien systems. Artists were creating propaganda that made humans feel angry and united. The most shocking reports came from Earth itself. The government had activated something called the Genesis Protocol. Sarah had never heard of it before, but apparently it had been waiting for decades. Human volunteers were being given experimental treatments that enhanced their intelligence, their reflexes, their ability to process information. They were becoming living weapons, their minds modified to be perfect soldiers and strategists. Other humans were volunteering for memory modification. They would have their peaceful thoughts removed and replaced with combat instincts. They would become people whose only purpose was winning the war. Sarah found these reports disturbing, but she also understood them. Humanity was fighting for its survival against an enemy that had thousands of years of military experience. They needed every advantage they could get. 3 weeks after the New Horizon massacre, Sarah finished her first report. She had found 17 different ways to disrupt Zephyrian crystal biology. Some would cause pain. Others would cause confusion. A few would cause complete system shutdown. She sent the report to Earth and waited for orders. The reply came back in 6 hours. It was not from a military officer or a government official. It was from Ambassador Elena Vasquez herself. Dr. Chen. The message said, "Your work is exactly what we need. Continue developing these methods. Test them. Perfect them. The Zephyrians believe we are primitive children who do not understand real warfare." Elena's face appeared on Sarah's screen. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were completely cold. They are about to learn that humans do not fight like other species. We do not simply try to win battles. We study our enemies like scientists study diseases. We learn everything about them. Then we find ways to make them stop existing. Elena paused. The Zephyrians wanted war with humanity. They killed our children to prove their point. Now, they will discover what happens when humans stop playing by galactic rules and start playing by Earth rules. The message ended. Sarah sat in her laboratory, surrounded by data about crystal biology and weapon designs. Outside her window, she could see human warships gathering in the darkness of space. The sleeping giant was awake. It was very, very angry. Admiral Zhang Wei stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the Zephyrian fleet approach. His ship was smaller than the enemy vessels, but he was not worried. The Zephyrians still thought they were fighting the same humans who had begged for peace 6 months ago. They were wrong, Admiral, his tactical officer said. Enemy fleet consists of 47 crystal dreadnoughts and 120 support vessels. They outnumber us 3-1. Zhang nodded. Have they scanned our ships yet? Yes, sir. Their scans show standard human vessel configurations. They think we still have the same weapons as before. Zhang smiled coldly. The Zephyrians were about to learn their first lesson about human warfare. Humans were very good at making enemies underestimate them. Begin recording all enemy communications, Zhang ordered. I want to know how they think, how they plan, how they react to surprises. Every word they say is data we can use. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation. Zhang had studied their tactics for months. They always did the same thing. A crystal wall formation, advanced slowly, overwhelmed the enemy with superior firepower. It had worked for them for thousands of years, but they had never fought humans before. Sir, the communications officer said, incoming message from the Zephyrian flagship. Put it on screen. A tall Zephyrian appeared on the main display. His crystal body glowed with confident blue light. Zhang recognized him from intelligence reports. Fleet Commander Sekmar, one of their best military leaders. Human vessels, Sekmar said. You are outmatched and outnumbered. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Continue to resist, and we will make you suffer as your colony ship suffered. Zhang stepped forward. Fleet Commander Sekmar. I am Admiral Zhang Wei of the United Earth Space Navy. I have a message. For you, speak quickly, primitive. 6 months ago, you killed 50,000 of our people, including 12,000 children. Today, you will learn why that was a mistake. Sekmar laughed. The sound was like breaking crystal. You think your tiny fleet can challenge the might of the Zephyrian Empire? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have destroyed 1,000 enemy fleets. Yes, Zhang said calmly. And that experience has made you predictable. Zhang cut the communication and turned to his crew. All ships, execute Protocol 7. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. The Zephyrians had expected them to form a defensive line and fight traditionally. Instead, the human ships moved in ways that seemed random and chaotic. But Zhang knew exactly what each ship was doing. They had practiced this maneuver hundreds of times. While the Zephyrians tried to figure out what was happening, the human ships were taking positions around the enemy fleet. Sir, the tactical officer said, all ships report ready. Begin the demonstration, Zhang ordered. The first surprise was the human weapons. Instead of the energy beams the Zephyrians expected, the human ships fired something completely different. Tiny missiles that seemed to do no damage at first Sekmar's voice came over the communication channel again. Is this your great human strategy? Throwing pebbles at crystal ships? Zhang did not respond. He was counting seconds in his head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The missiles exploded, but not with fire or energy. They released clouds of what looked like glittering dust. The dust spread across the Zephyrian ships and seemed to disappear. What is this? Sekmar demanded. What have you done? Dr. Sarah Chen sends her regards, Zhang said quietly. Within minutes, the effect became clear. The beautiful crystal hulls of the Zephyrian ships began to change color. Instead of their normal blue glow, they started flickering between different colors randomly. Green, yellow, purple. The Zephyrian crews were becoming confused. Their crystal bodies used color to communicate and coordinate. The virus that Dr. Chen had developed was interfering with their natural communication systems. Sir, his science officer reported, the quantum virus is working perfectly. It is disrupting the molecular bonds in their crystal matrix. Their ships are losing structural integrity, and their crews cannot communicate properly. Zhang watched. As the mighty Zephyrian fleet began to fall apart, ships collided with each other as their pilots became disoriented. Weapons fired randomly as the gunners lost control of their targeting systems, but Zhang was not finished. The virus was just the first lesson. All ships execute Protocol 14. The human fleet moved again, this time in perfect coordination. They surrounded groups of disabled Zephyrian ships and began the second phase of the attack. This time, the humans used conventional weapons, but they used them in ways the Zephyrians had never seen. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ships completely, they targeted specific systems. Navigation computers, life support, communication arrays. Each attack was precise and calculated. The humans had studied Zephyrian ship designs for months. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum confusion with minimum destruction. Zhang wanted the Zephyrian crews to survive. He wanted them to remember this day, wanted them to go back to their empire and tell everyone what human warfare was really like. Admiral, the communications officer said, we are receiving surrender requests from 38 Zephyrian vessels. Accept their surrenders, Zhang ordered. But keep recording everything. I want complete records of their tactical responses, their emergency procedures, their crew coordination methods. Even in victory, the humans were learning. Every piece of information about the enemy would be studied and used in the next battle. Sekmar's flagship was still fighting, but it was alone now. The rest of his fleet was either surrendering or drifting helplessly in space. Fleet Commander Zhang said, opening communication again, you have lost this battle. Surrender your ship, and your crew will be treated according to galactic law. Sekmar's crystal body was flashing angry red patterns. This is not possible. We are the greatest military force in the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by primitives. Commander Zhang said patiently, you made several mistakes today. First, you assumed we would fight the same way we did 6 months ago. Second, you assumed we would use the same weapons. Third, you assumed we had not learned anything from studying your previous battles. Zhang paused and looked directly at the Zephyrian leader. But your biggest mistake was thinking that humans fight like other species. We do not simply try to win battles. We treat warfare like a science. We study our enemies until we understand them completely, and we find ways to turn their strengths into weaknesses. Sekmar was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, less confident. What do you want from us? I want you to go back to your empire, Zhang said. I want you to tell them exactly what happened here today. Tell them that. This was just a small example of what humans can do when we stop holding back. Zhang gestured toward the damaged Zephyrian fleet. Look around you, Commander. We destroyed your entire fleet without killing a single crew member. We did this because we wanted to send a message, not because we had to. Zhang's voice became colder. Next time will be different. The next time, we will not be so gentle. Tell your leaders that humanity remembers the children on the new horizon. Tell them that we are coming for them. And when we arrive, we will not stop until the Zephyrian Empire learns what erasure truly means. Sekmar's flagship limped away from the battlefield, carrying its crew and its terrible news back to Zephyrian space. Jung turned to his crew. All ships begin salvage operations. I want every piece of Zephyrian technology studied and cataloged. Every weapon, every computer system, every piece of their crystal matrix. Sir, his science officer asked, what do we do with the prisoners? Jung thought for a moment. Treat them well. Give them medical care. Let them communicate with their families. Show them that humans can be merciful when we choose to be. Then we let them go home. Let them tell everyone they meet about this battle. Let them spread the word about what happened here. Jung looked out at the stars, thinking about the larger war that was still to come. Zephyrians think they understand warfare because they have been fighting for thousands of years. But they have always fought the same enemies using the same methods. They have never fought a species that learns and adapts the way humans do. Jung smiled, but there was no warmth in it. By the time this war is over, they will understand that experience. Means nothing when your enemy becomes smarter every day. Professor Cale Thornwick sat in his study at the University of New Geneva, staring at his computer screen in confusion. He'd been working on his research paper about Zephyrian art history for 3 months. Now, half of his references were missing. Files were still there, but the content was wrong. Where there should have been descriptions of beautiful crystal sculptures, he found only error messages. Where there should have been images of ancient Zephyrian cities, he saw nothing but gray squares. Cale rubbed his eyes and tried again. Maybe it was just a computer problem. But when he checked his printed notes, they were wrong too. Words had changed. Dates were different. Some sentences made no sense at all. He picked up his phone and called his colleague at the Galactic Cultural Archive. Dr. Yates speaking, came the voice on the other end. Margaret, this is Cale. I am having some strange problems with my Zephyrian research. Are you having any issues with the archive databases? There was a long pause. Cale, what? Zephyrian research? Paper on Zephyrian crystal art, the one I have been working on for months. You've helped me find the source materials? Another pause. Cale, I think you might be confused. Zephyrians have never been known for art. They are a military species. Very aggressive. Not creative at all. Cale felt something cold in his stomach. Margaret, that is not right. We've talked about this many times. The Zephyrian crystal gardens, the singing towers, the light symphonies. I have no idea what you are talking about, Margaret said. Are you feeling all right? Cale hung up the phone. Something was very wrong. He spent the next hour searching. Through every database he could access, the more he looked, the more confused he became. All the information about Zephyrian culture was changing. Their art was disappearing. Their literature was being replaced with military manuals. Their music was becoming weapon specifications. Then he found something that made his blood run cold. A news article from 3 days ago. The headline read, Human Information Warfare Division reports complete success in cultural erasure operations. Cale, read the article with growing horror. Humans had developed something called the Memory Theft Protocol. Teams of enhanced hackers were systematically attacking every database in the galaxy. They were not just destroying information about the Zephyrians. They were replacing it with false information, according to the article the humans were using. Quantum computer viruses that could change data at the molecular level. Even printed books were being affected. The viruses could alter ink patterns and paper structures from a distance. But that was not the worst part. The article mentioned something called cognitive modification fields. The humans had found a way to change the memories of other species. When beings tried to remember Zephyrian culture, their brains would automatically replace those memories with false ones. Cale realized that his own mind was being affected. He could feel his memories changing as he tried to recall them. The beautiful crystal art he had studied was becoming ugly weapons. The peaceful Zephyrian philosophers were becoming violent generals. He tried to write down what he remembered before it was all gone, but his hands would not obey him. Every time he tried to write about Zephyrian culture, he found himself writing about their military instead. Across the galaxy, the same thing was happening to millions of beings. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the Human Information Warfare Command Center. Around her, Hundreds of technicians worked at glowing screens. Each one was connected to a different galactic database. One was carefully erasing pieces of Zephyrian civilization. Portalina said to her chief technician. "Ma'am," the young man said, "we have successfully infiltrated 93% of all galactic information networks. The Zephyrian cultural databases have been completely overwritten. Their art, music, literature, and philosophy no longer exist in any accessible form." Alina nodded. "What about physical artifacts?" "The quantum field generators are working perfectly," another technician reported. "We have altered the molecular structure of Zephyrian artifacts in over 6,000 museums across the galaxy. Their crystal sculptures now look like weapons. Their musical instruments have become torture devices." Alina walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of red dots. Each dot represented a successful memory modification. "And the cognitive effects?" she asked. "Excellent results," said Dr. Kim, her chief psychologist. "The neural field projectors are working on all major population centers. When other species try to remember positive things about Zephyrian culture, their brains automatically replace those memories with negative military images." Lena studied the reports with satisfaction. This was the true genius of human warfare. Other species fought with ships and weapons. Humans fought with reality itself. Dr. Kim Alina said, "How long before the effects become permanent?" "At current rates, approximately 6 months. After that, even if we stopped the projectors, the false memories would remain. The galaxy will remember the Zephyrians only as a violent, uncultured military species." Alina smiled. "And their own memories?" "The Zephyrians themselves are being affected too. Their neural patterns are similar enough to other crystalline species that our cognitive fields work on them as well. They are beginning to forget their own cultural heritage." Alina turned to address the entire command center. "Excellent work, everyone. Phase 1 of the memory theft protocol is nearly complete. Galaxy is forgetting that the Zephyrians were ever anything more than brutal soldiers." She paused and looked around the room. "Phase 2 will begin next week. We will start creating false historical records showing Zephyrian war crimes against other species. By the time we are finished, every species in the galaxy will remember the Zephyrians as monsters who have always threatened galactic peace." One of the technicians raised his hand. "Ma'am, some of our people are concerned about the ethical implications of this operation." Elena's expression became cold. "Remind those people about the children on the New Horizon. Remind them that the Zephyrians killed 50,000 innocent civilians without warning. Remind them that High Consul Kethfer called us parasites and primitives who deserved extinction." Elena walked closer to the technician. "The Zephyrians started this war because they thought we were weak. They thought we would fight like other species, with simple violence and destruction. They never imagined that humans could fight a war against memory itself." She gestured toward the displays showing their progress. "We are not just defeating the Zephyrian military, we're erasing their entire civilization from history. Future generations will never know that the Zephyrians were once poets and artists and philosophers. They will only remember them as the violent species that humanity destroyed." Alina returned to the main console. "This is what total war means when humans fight it. We do not just kill our enemies' bodies. We kill their cultures, their histories, their very identities. We make them into nothing more than cautionary tales." Across the galaxy, the memory theft protocol continued its work. In libraries, databases were corrupted. In museums, beautiful artifacts became ugly weapons.
Ow!
In the minds of billions of beings, memories changed and twisted until truth became fiction. The Zephyrians had wanted to humiliate humanity in front of the galactic community. Now they were discovering what humiliation truly meant. They were watching their entire civilization disappear, not from bombs or lasers, but from the simple human ability to rewrite reality itself. High Consul Kethfer sat in his crystal palace, trying to remember a poem his mother had sung to him as a child. But every time he started to recall the words, they changed into military marching songs. Every time he tried to picture her gentle face, he saw only the stern features of a war. Commander, he was beginning to forget who his people really were. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he was starting to believe that maybe they had always been the monsters that Other species now remembered them as. The humans had found the perfect weapon. They were not just winning the war, they were erasing the very idea that there had ever been anything worth fighting for. High Consul Kethfer stood alone in his Crystal Palace throne room, staring at the empty walls. The beautiful art that had once decorated his home was gone. It's not destroyed, but changed into something ugly and military. He could not remember what. The original pieces had looked like. His reflection in the polished crystal walls showed a leader who had aged decades in just 1 year. The war with humanity had lasted only 12 months, but it felt like a lifetime. The worst part was not the military defeats. It was the slow realization that his people were losing something much more important than battles. They were losing themselves. A communication crystal chimed softly. Kethver touched it with one crystalline finger. "High Consul," came the voice. "Of his military aid, the human fleet has entered our home system. Admiral Zhang Wei is requesting to speak with you." Kethver closed his eyes. He had known this day would come. The human forces had been moving steadily toward the Zephyrian homeworld for months. Every battle had been the same story. The Zephyrians would attack with superior numbers and firepower. The humans would respond with tactics and weapons that made no sense. Then the Zephyrians would lose. But the military defeats were not the real problem. The real problem was what happened after each battle. Humans would capture Zephyrian soldiers, treat them well, then send them home with strange stories. Stories about how the Zephyrians had always been a violent, warmongering species with no culture or art. At first, Kethver had dismissed these stories as human psychological warfare, but then his own people started believing them. Zephyrian historians began finding records showing that their species had never created anything beautiful. Zephyrian artists forgot how to make anything except weapons. Zephyrian musicians could only remember war songs. "Put Admiral Zhang through," Kethver said quietly. The communication crystal flickered and showed the face of the human Admiral Zhang. Looked exactly the same as he had a year ago during their first battle. Calm, patient, and completely confident. "High Consul Kethver," Zhang said politely. I am here to accept your surrender." Kethver laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Admiral, my military forces still outnumber yours. We have orbital defense platforms. We have ground-based weapons that could destroy your entire fleet." "Yes," Zhang agreed. "We could probably kill most of my people before we overwhelmed you." "But what would be the point?" Zhang paused and seemed to be looking directly into Kethver's soul. "High Consul, when was the last time you heard one of your people sing a song that was not about war? When was the last time you saw a piece of Zephyrian art that celebrated beauty instead of violence? When was the last time you met a young Zephyrian who wanted to be a poet instead of a soldier?" Kethver felt something break inside his chest. He tried to remember the last time he had heard beautiful music from his people, but he could not. Every song he could recall was a military march or a battle hymn. "What have you done to us?" Kethver whispered. "We fought a war," Zhang said simply, "but not the kind of war you expected. You thought we would try to destroy your bodies, your ships, your cities. Instead, we destroyed something much more important." Zhang leaned forward slightly. "We destroyed the idea of who you used to be. We erased your culture, your art, your philosophy, your dreams. We turned you into exactly what you accused us of being. Primitives who only understand violence." Kethver sank into his crystal throne. Why? Why not just kill us cleanly? Why this ... torture?" "Because," Zhang said, his voice becoming harder, "you killed 50,000 of our civilians, including 12,000 children. You called us parasites and primitives. You told us we deserved extinction. You tried to humiliate us in front of the entire galaxy." Zhang's eyes were completely cold now. "We decided to show the galaxy what happens when humans are truly humiliated. We decided to make you into a lesson that every species will remember for 1,000 years." Kethver looked around his empty throne room. "What do you want from us now?" "Complete surrender," Zhang said. "Your military forces will be disbanded. Your government will be dissolved. Your people will become a client species under human protection. And if we refuse..." Zhang was quiet for a moment. "High Consul, look at your people. Really look at them. Do you see artists, or scientists, or philosophers? Do you see anyone who..." remembers how to create instead of destroy? Kethver did not answer because he could not. Zhang was right. The Zephyrians had become exactly what the humans had made them into, a species that only knew how to fight and kill. If you refuse, Zhang continued, we will complete the erasure. We will remove every trace that your species ever existed. Your planets will be given to other peoples. Your language will be forgotten. Your very name will disappear from galactic records. Zhang paused. But if you surrender, we will allow your people to live. You will exist as a reminder to other species about what happens when someone declares war on humanity. Kethvar felt tears forming in his crystalline eyes. You have already won. Why do you need our formal surrender? Because Zhang said, the rest of the galaxy is watching. They need to see that resistance to humanity is not just futile, but that it leads to something worse than death. It leads to becoming nothing. Elena Vasquez appeared on the screen next to Admiral Zhang. Kethver recognized her immediately. She was the human ambassador who had delivered the original warning almost 2 years ago. Hi, Consul, Elena said. Do you remember what I told you in the Galactic Council chambers? Kethver nodded slowly. No mercy, no memory, only erasure. Exactly. We warned you what would happen if you forced humanity to fight for survival. You chose not to listen.
Elena's
expression was not angry or hateful. It was simply matter of fact. Your species will survive, but only as an example. Your children will grow up knowing that their people once challenged humanity and lost everything because of it. They will learn that the greatest military empire in galactic history was reduced to a client species by humans in less than 2 years. Alina looked directly at Kethver. Every species in the galaxy will remember this war. They will remember that the mighty Zephyrians were not just defeated, but completely erased and rebuilt according to human design. And when future species consider challenging humanity, they will think of you. Kethver closed his eyes. What do I need to do? Announce the surrender to your people, Zhang said. Tell them that the Zephyrian Empire is finished. Tell them that they will now live under human protection as a protectorate species. And then you will personally travel to Earth, Elena said. You will stand before the United Earth government and formally apologize for the massacre. Of the New Horizon, you will admit that your species was wrong to challenge humanity. Elena paused. And you will thank us for allowing your people to continue existing. Kethver felt the last of his pride crumble away. But what choice did he have? His people had been completely outmatched, not just militarily, but intellectually and psychologically. The humans had fought a kind of war that the Zephyrians had never imagined possible. I understand, he said quietly. Good, Zhang said. Our ships will escort you to Earth once the surrender is complete. The ceremony will be broadcast across the galaxy so that every species can see what total defeat looks like. The communication ended. Kethver sat alone in his empty throne room, preparing to address his people for the last time as their leader. In space above the Zephyrian homeworld, the human fleet waited patiently. They had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not just conquered an enemy. They had erased them completely and then rebuilt them from scratch. The Zephyrians would live. But they would never again be the species they had once been. It would exist only as a reminder of what happened when someone made the mistake of threatening humanity's children. Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the Zephyrian homeworld below. The war was over, but the message had been sent. Humanity was no longer the newest species in the galaxy. They were now the species that every other civilization would fear to challenge. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. When humans said no mercy, no memory, only erasure, they meant exactly what they said.